Natalie Carroll,
And I'm Brenna Price.
and we did Play Like a Pirate by Quin Rollins. So the first chapter is about using action figures such as Funko Pop, and I did an example here of what you might use, and you can have a character biography, the main character, and like collect them all.
And then the second chapter is about Transformers, so just another idea of how you can incorporate toys in your classroom to highlight historical figures or to teach about history, which is awesome. So an example of this would be having students draw Harriet Tubman and then maybe drawing what she would look like as a Transformer. So you could draw her to transform into a train that represents the Underground Railroad and how she's transporting slaves away from their enslavement.
Okay, next is Hot Wheels. So for Hot Wheels, you can design their own car that can mark their progress. And Hot Wheels actually makes lesson plans for specifically math and science subjects. For history, you can have a Hot Wheels track timeline where they put events or the years on the track so you can measure the timeline.
And then the next toy that he recommends using is Barbie. And I really like this because the toys up until now I feel like have been very targeted towards boys. But this is a great way to have girls connect with toys in the classroom. And we can use Barbie to put the spotlight on one of the lesser known female history makers. So you could draw a Barbie about Harriet Tubman again or Amelia Earhart. And I think that's a great way, and you could write their biographies, and then you can do a collect them all series and have each student highlight a different figure and make a different Barbie.
Next is Play-Doh. So for Play-Doh, you can do like a think, pair, share or a create, pair, share, where the students create something from an idea or event that you suggest, and then they talk to the partner about what they created, and then they share with the class. So you can do like figures, like key figures, or just ideas in history or events with Play-Doh.
The next chapter is about how you can use Smurfs, and I think this is one of Quin Rollins' strengths because up until now, the toys that we have used have been very individual, just highlighting individual historical characters. But this is a great way to use toys to teach about communities or societies. For example, if you wanted to teach about the ancient Roman Empire, you could use Smurfs and use Papa Smurf to highlight Julius Caesar, and Smurfette to highlight the role of women in the Roman society. And then you can have other Smurfs to highlight different roles as the politicians or anything else. I think this is a great idea to teach about communities and community building.
Next is Legos. So Legos are really fun for everyone. They can create Lego sets where they create a set about an event or a year, and they have the different figures that they can create with that. Or you can look at online at pictures of other like historians or Lego creators that have created scenes or events in history, and you can see how that is a good representation or bad representation of history.
And then Quin Rollins moves into the second section of his book, which is about how to gamify or use games in your classroom. The first chapter of this section just talks about how you can add games simply in your classroom. You can use it to help your students alter the course, to decide how much time you're going to spend on a specific portion of the class, whatever it might be. It's just a really easy way to add an element of fun in your classroom without having to dictate the majority of the class period to playing a game.
Next is a specific thing for games. It's board games. So how you can use board games in the classroom. For example, you can have students play board games that teach history, or you can have them create their own board games, and which is really good because making your own board game, you have to really know about the events and stuff, and so it's a good way to assess the students' knowledge.
The last game that he recommends using is Minecraft, and this really surprised me, mainly probably because I didn't know enough about Minecraft, but he uses a lot of reasons to justify why this is a great source to have in your classroom. And one thing that I really liked is that you can have a private server in your school specifically for Minecraft that you can buy. So this makes it really safe for students. And then I think it's an awesome way just to gauge how students are understanding or picturing certain things in history. So if you're teaching about an ancient civilization and then have them create that civilization, you can see how they're picturing it in their minds. Or if you're teaching about World War I and the trenches and ask them to make that and create that, you can see how well they're understanding this concept by the ways that they create it and put that into this game.
Next is trading cards. So trading cards are really fun for students to create and use throughout the class. You can have games where they use their trading cards and have them create them throughout the school year or semester. And then at the end of the year, you have a big game where they use all of their trading cards and they can learn about the different key figures and constantly be setting their trading cards throughout the year.
And then the last element of, oh, sorry, he actually moves into his third section here, which is superheroes and graphic novels and comic strips. And I think this is another one of his strengths because superheroes are not necessarily gender neutral. There are female and male superheroes that students can identify with and relate to, which I think is awesome. And it's another really good way to spotlight historical figures. So you could talk about Alexander Hamilton and what would his superpowers be? Or Harriet Tubman, again, as an example, what would her superhero, what would she look like as a superhero, and what would her powers be?
Okay, next is comic books and graphic novels. So in this section, Quin Rollins talks about how he likes to use graphic novels in his classroom. For example, he really loves the Nathan Hale's Hazardous Tale series, where the revolutionary spy Nathan Hales tells the history through graphic novels, and they're really fun specifically for middle schoolers to read and study about history.
And then finally, Quin Rollins recommends using comic strips in your class. He recommends it as just starting your class with a comic strip, so you start with a laugh. So if you find a comic strip that connects really well with your class and the material that you're teaching that day, it would be a great idea to use it because it just starts your class off on a fun, happy note. And I also think this is a great idea because many students grew up with comic strips and reading them and being at least familiar with them. So this is a great way, once again, to build a bridge from our students' home life or their childhood into the classroom, so it makes that transition easier and it makes it more relatable to them as students.
Okay, so my review of the book is about a 4.75 out of a 5 scale, and I would definitely recommend this book for people who are interested in using toys in the classroom. Like if you're really passionate about toys or games or comics, because it makes the classroom really fun. But if you're not passionate about it, I think it might seem like awkward. But if you really feel like that's a great way to help involve students, I think it would be a great read for you. And the weaknesses I really see in this book is that some of the subjects are kind of hard to use universally. Like, for example, the Hot Wheels. It's kind of a stretch to talk about the timeline thing with the Hot Wheels track. It doesn't really, Hot Wheels doesn't really go along with history, and I think it'd be hard to connect it. And so I wish it was a little bit more universal, or if we gave more ideas of how you can use the different subjects within all subjects, with all like teaching subjects.
I also would give this book about a 4.5 out of 5 stars. I really liked how it was written. Quin Rollins is really funny and really engaging. It was a quick read and easy to read, so it's not a huge, necessarily a huge time commitment. I really liked that aspect, but I also liked the content. I liked his ideas by including toys and games and superheroes and comic strips into the classroom because that just makes it more fun for the students. But I definitely saw a few weaknesses, such as I felt some of the toys were very gender targeted. I didn't think lots of them were gender neutral, so sometimes the girls I don't think will relate very much at all, and then the boys as well. I also wondered about how well this incorporates skills into the classroom. I don't think it does a great job at that. So I think as long as we as teachers have balance, where sometimes we do primary source documents to teach them about writing and reading and sourcing and build up those skills, and then have this as well to engage them and to create elements of fun into our classroom.